Hello, and welcome back to Laura's Plans. So in today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. It is officially September 15th, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to start thinking about my next notebook for 2021. It's coming to the end of quarter 3 and moving into quarter 4, and I'm actually going to be running out of pages in my Stalogy. Well, I'm not running out of pages. I went through, and although we didn't do the setup for this week, I'm kind of glad we didn't, because what I realized is I had a very finite number of pages to use before I ran into my commonplace section and my collection section here in the back of my Stalogy. Truth of the matter is, this section is very well used, and there's only a couple of blank pages left in here. So I really couldn't extend into this section with another month. And the way September worked out is I actually, when I went through and put everything together and created this week with a day on 2 pages for each day, next week with a day on 2 pages for each day, and then the last 4 days of September, I actually only had one spread left before I ran into my commonplace and collection section. And so I went ahead and set that up as a September review. And I apologize for not doing all of this with you on camera, but I was a little concerned that I wasn't going to have enough. So I just went ahead and did it to put my anxiety at rest, so to speak. So my Stalogy that has housed July, August, and September will be done at the end of September, and I'm having to decide what type of notebook I'm going to move into. Because I really don't want to purchase anything, what I've done is taken 4 different choices of notebook, and we're going to kind of review them and talk through the process I go through when deciding which notebook to grab next. I actually have a couple different styles of A5 Stalogy, and one of them may be a surprise for some of you. Some of you may already know that this is out there, or it's something you've used. But for me, it's one that I actually haven't used yet, and so I thought I'd share it with you. The 2 Stalogy options that I have are actually the A5 Editors Series 365-day notebook that is the traditional with the gridded paper, the date watermarks at the top, and the timeline along the side. This is the one I use most frequently. I actually have it both in full year and half year versions in multiple colors, but I just brought out the black just to kind of do a side-by-side comparison. The other option is something that came out, I do believe, in mid-2021, and it's something that I actually had to search pretty hard to find when I bought these. I have this in a black and a red, and they are, as you can tell, the jackets are different because this is a different notebook. This is an Editor Series 365-day notebook in the A5 size, but it's a dot grid notebook. This is different than your standard. And obviously, I just said dot grid. But there's also some other differences. Although the cover and the flyleaf and the dimensions are all the same, when you open this up, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat, and I knew this from the images when I was looking at them, is there are none of the watermarks at the top of the Stalogy page, nor are there any time bar marks along the side. This is a very pale dot grid notebook. Right now on camera, I'm not sure that you can see the dot grid, but I'll zoom it in here in a moment. It is unnumbered. There are the same number of pages that you would find in a normal Stalogy, and the paper quality seems to be exactly the same. I will say though, part of me is a little concerned because of the paleness of that dot. If any of you have ever been working, and it might just be because my eyes are older than others, there are times that even with the pale grid of the normal Stalogy, I struggle to see the grid. And I will honestly say the dot pattern on this page is much lighter than the grid. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom this in and bring this over so that you can see just how pale that dot pattern is. And I do have to tell you, I'm like at 2.5 times zoom. So you are zoomed in quite a bit. That's a very, very pale 5mm dot grid that are on the pages, which if you are from, you know, that original school of bullet journals, this might be something that really appeals to you. I know it did me, and that's why I purchased this notebook. Actually, I purchased 2 of them, and I intend to use them, but I do know that I am going to be hunching over these pages quite a bit in order to see that dot grid. The other thought I had was using maybe a darker, and I have this for, you know, demonstration purposes, putting a darker piece of paper underneath it to see if that brings up the dot more, and it actually doesn't. And I also thought about putting in maybe another dot grid page that is darker, like a cream color, and that seems to work pretty well. You do see the dots more with a cream color. So I may make a pencil board with a 5mm grid on some cream paper and put that in there, or I may take a piece of Stalogy paper, back it with some cream, and then make it into a pencil board that I can slip in and line the dots up, and then have that added color in the back to make the dots appear. But this is a new notebook from Stalogy, and what's really kind of great about it is, I don't know about you guys, but those dots, not dots, but the watermarks at the top of the page on the traditional Stalogy, although I've taught myself to ignore them, they're always there. And same with the time bar. Now, I'm a time bar person, but I never use the time bar that's delineated on these pages. A, because they're so faint, and B, because they're so stinking small. And I mean, I write small, but that's even too small for me. So if this is something that you have not liked about the Stalogy, there are options for you that don't have them. These new Stalogy editions come in the dot grid, there's a lined page, and there's a blank page. There we go. Now you can see the whole notebook again. I did purchase these notebooks from JetPens, but I will tell you, if you just type in Stalogy, you're not going to find them. You actually need to type in Stalogy 365 dot grid to bring them up. And you, when searching for them, you really want to be careful to make sure that you're looking at the one with the blue jacket on it. The yellow jacket is your traditional grid. The blue jacket is for the dot grid, and I believe white is for the blank, and I don't remember what the lined color value was. So it might be red or a pink of some sort, because these kind of go with the traditional colors. The other thing that is nice about this is they do have them in the traditional Stalogy colors. You can get them in black, red, blue, and yellow. They don't have any of the special edition colors. And unfortunately, for those of you who use B6, they don't currently, not that I could find, sell them in the B6 size, but you could always cut down an A5 to a B6 at your local Staples or Office Max. So one of my options moving into the last quarter of 2021 is to use one of these two notebooks. Of these two, I really love this grid spacing style, but I think I'm leaning towards playing with dot grids more, and there's a couple of reasons why. I go through phases. I think everybody goes through phases when they're in their planning. And right now, I seem to be moving away from heavy, just like pen and sticker use, more into a creative phase where I'm not doing as much personal journaling as I have in the past. In fact, I've noticed for the last few weeks, I'm really using the bullet journal kind of side of it. And my personal journaling is, although I'm recording little thoughts and things that happen, my personal journaling is actually going into my personal journal, the book that does nothing but capture my thoughts and words and moments and things like that. And so I'm finding that I'm using the second page more for creativity. I'm finding that when I have blank spaces, or if I want to tip in artwork that I've done during the week, or little things, that I'm putting those into my journal, but I'm not my bullet journal, but I'm not necessarily writing in my bullet journal like I was before. And so that, as I flipped through and looked at this, I realized that's kind of an indicator of what I'm wanting or needing. And it's really funny because when I moved work out into this B6 planner, I am loving this B6 Stalogy for work. It is the perfect size. It allows me to take notes. It allows me to capture everything that I need for work. And this lovely little thing, I think, is probably going to last me all the way through Q3 and into through Q4 and all the way into Q1 before I need a new one. And I'm okay with that, because for work, these are not things that I keep around forever. I keep them on my shelf for about a year, and then I analyze, is there anything in there that I need to keep, any project information I need to keep that it might be ongoing, and if not, then it is discarded. So these are not notebooks that I worry about keeping bound within a year, like they're editions, right? They're volumes. So that's okay, and I love this thing. B6 is a perfect size for me for work. But for my bullet journal, I'm finding I'm wanting to be more creative. I'm wanting to paint. I'm wanting to use markers. I'm wanting to doodle. I'm wanting to make it more of my creative space. And so I'm going to honor that. So with that, I'm also moving away from the structure a little bit, and I thought maybe this dot grid would be a really good idea. I will say I am concerned because this paper is very, very, very thin. And let me show you. Give me one moment. When I first purchased these, I did a pen test, I did a watercolor test. This top line was written with my 0.005 micron. This is a Pilot Kakuno with the extra fine nib, which is like a 0.3 nib for like a gel pen. This is a Zig Clean Color Dot in denim. This is Tombow N60, which is not the lightest, but it's not a very dark Tombow. And this is just one of my knockoff brush pens in a orangey color. And this is my TWSBI Diamond. I also did some watercolor tests, and we'll talk about that in a second, why this is all smudged and look like this. But when I turn the page, one of the things I noticed is the ghosting on this page is so much more prevalent than I think in the normal Stalogy, which is really strange because it feels exactly like the same paper. So I'm wondering if the printing of the grid line kind of masks some of that as you begin using it. I don't know, but that, I mean, look at that Tombow. That Tombow is very light, and yet it shows up like nobody's business on here. The other thing I noticed is it doesn't dry as fast. And so when I went in and did this little watercolor, it took quite a while to dry, and I thought it was dry. And I turned the page, and I had a bleed, which I actually like this little abstract kind of, you know, butterfly print kind of thing. But it's reacting differently than it does in the normal Stalogy. And because I am going to be doing a lot of, I know I'm going to be doing it, it's almost like my cycle. When the holidays come, when fall comes, I'm inspired to paint and draw and create. And so I know that I am going to be doing lots of artwork and creative elements in my notebook, and I'm not sure that this is the best option. But I wanted to show it to you guys because if you're a person that really isn't a heavy marker user, or if you don't really watercolor, or, you know, do a lot of artwork or doodling and things like that in your Stalogy, this is a really great option. And I know that when I move out of this creative phase in Q3, and probably when we start talking January, I am busy at work with the beginning of the new fiscal year and the new projects for the year and everything. This type of notebook, I think, will work very well. So that is the first option in my migration process, and I haven't ruled it off the table. There's definite pros to this notebook and there's definite cons to this notebook. In the next video, I'm going to show you one of the other options that I'm looking at for moving into the last quarter of 2021 in November. And those styles are more traditional dot grid. I'll actually show you two notebooks. I'm going to show you the Leuchtturm 1970 120 GSM dot grid notebook, as well as the Leuchtturm bullet journal and an Archer and Olive. And the reason I'm going to kind of bring them all together is because they're very much similar, but there's some minor differences between each one, and we're going to talk it out. And honestly, guys, I know it may seem nuts, but this is what I do when I get ready to migrate. It's not just about the number of pages or, you know, what I've been using in the past. I really begin to sit down at each migration point and think about, what do I need? At a bare minimum, what do I need? And then I flip through and take a look at the journal I'm currently using and gauge how I'm using it and whether or not there's something I need that I'm not getting from that notebook, or if there's something about that notebook that is really pulling me and saying, yes, this is exactly where you need to be. Because most of the time, using this Stalogy is something that I'm very comfortable with. You know, this dot grid, not the dot grid, but the regular grid, and I can ignore that. But when I saw these and I saw that the watermark wasn't at the top and it was just such a almost blank page to be able to create in, I was very drawn to it. But when I did that pen test for the phase that I'm in, I'm not really sure that this is going to be the right notebook. But I don't know. I haven't made the call. I haven't made the decision, and I thought I'd bring you along for the ride. So if you're interested or have any questions for me about this dot grid Stalogy, please feel free to leave your questions, comments, thoughts below. I did order these off of JetPens, and really when you search, just put in Stalogy, you know, A5 dot grid, and it should come up. But if you just put in Stalogy, you're really only going to see these gridded notebooks. So it is a little bit different of a search. And I hope this was helpful. I hope taking a look at this new type of Stalogy, for those of you who are dedicated 100% Stalogy users, here's another option for you to take. And I'm going to look forward to using these either within this next quarter or within this next year, because ultimately I am going to have to use them, because I am not going to buy any notebooks for 2022. Everything that I have on my shelf will probably take me through, to be perfectly honest, I can probably get through all of 2023 before I have to buy another notebook. Between my Stalogies, my Archer and Olive, and my Leuchtturms, I think that I can get through the next 2 years, and that's my intention. I am challenging myself to truly use the last remaining notebooks on my shelf, so that moving out of 2023 and into 2024, I can really analyze what works and what doesn't, and keep those style of notebooks around and available, but with only 1 or 2 extras, not 2 years worth of extras. So that's my challenge for myself. Let me know what you're thinking of doing for 2022. Let me know what you're thinking if you're in the process of migrating. What are some of the things you do other than just analyzing what spreads and your monthly setups and things like that? How do you make your decision about what your next notebook is going to be? And on that note, I will see you next time.